Kaieteur Radio, keeping you informed.
Demerara and Essequibo 99.1 FM.
Berbice 99.5 FM. Kaieteur Radio.
Good day. Welcome to your news at noon on Kaieteur Radio. I'm Kevin Smith. According to the draft production sharing agreement released on Tuesday for deep water and shallow water blocks, the PPPC government is proposing to implement a suite of international guidelines that oil companies must follow when preparing field development plans. These plans outline the steps a company will take to develop an oil or gas discovery. In the draft documents, the government has set out clear terms on how much information it wants to see from prospective license holders in these field development plans. It also seeks to retain the right to make adjustments where necessary. One of the proposed guidelines seeks to ensure oil companies provide a detailed account of their projected costs for oil projects, while including indicators such as project life cycle, internal rate of return, and break-even cost at different rates and return. Since 2017, Guyana's CBOB catch has been declining. This information was revealed in the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations summary report, The CBOB Value Chain in Guyana. Importantly, it was highlighted that the decrease was as a result of decline of the industrial catch. According to the report, the industrial firms attribute this drop in catch to a reduction in fishing effort as a result of an increase in sargassum and an inability to find and capture CBOB, possibly due to a declining stock. Sargassum is a group of large brown seaweed, a type of algae that floats in island-like masses and never attaches to the seafloor. However, it was pointed out in the report that the reasons for fluctuating and declining catch are not well studied, which is in turn mainly due to a lack of action from Guyana's Fisheries Department and the private actors in this regard, implying a critical need to conduct studies to investigate the problem, identify the root causes, and take proper actions to ensure the sustainability of the CBOB stock. In other news, the government recently released two new draft oil contracts that would govern the development of oil blocks outside of the Stabroek Block. The 14-day period allocated by the administration for notice, comments, and general public input is in itself prohibitive and would only undermine the purpose of releasing the information for commentary by the citizenry. The position was recently given by environmentalist Simone Mangal-Joly in a letter to the substantive minister, Vikram Bharat, copied to Rosalinda Rasool, head, Diaspora and Remigration Unit, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and shared with the media. Mangal-Joly outlined that while it's commendable that the government has released a draft model petroleum agreement for comments, unlike government officials, citizens are not paid employees of the state and can only read such documents during their after-work hours. To this end, she posited that 14 days is also prohibitive when it comes to procuring qualified specialists to provide advice so that citizens and civil society organizations can make informed representation to the government. Additionally, she said that the allocated 2 weeks time period cannot possibly allow the government to fulfill its Guyana's commitments under the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and the International Labour Organization for free, prior and informed consent of Indigenous peoples. Meanwhile, the draft document of the new model PSA should be subject to the necessary parliamentary processes which will allow for Guyanese to have an adequate review of the contract that will govern future oil deals. This is the perspective of the combined APNU-AFC. Elson Lowe, the Economic and Youth Policy Advisor at Office of the Leader of the Opposition, posited that the National Assembly presents the correct forum for the document to be properly reviewed. Lowe lamented the short time frame that was given for a national review of the draft new model PSA, asserting that the government should instead allow Guyanese more than 2 weeks to examine the very crucial document. And just before we head to a break, let's tell you the Guyana government has moved to acquire scores of acres of land behind Eccles on the east bank of the Marara to Garden of Eden. The order was made under the Acquisition of Lands for Public Purposes Act and signed by Minister of Public Works Juan Edgel on Tuesday last. The purpose of the acquisition was, as identified by Minister Edgel, points to the construction on land declared as public works, specifically the construction of a 230 kilovolt overhead double-circuit transmission line between the two identified locations. The lands have since been identified as shown on a plan prepared by the Surveys Division of the Guyana Lands and Surveys Commission. You're listening to Kaieteur Radio 99.1 and 99.5 FM. This is the news at noon. We'll return shortly after the break.
You don't have to be a fountain of knowledge to help children with their schoolwork while they're at home. But you do have to be caring, understanding, loving, and patient. It's an unsettling time for everyone, but children still need a safe and secure environment. So don't overwhelm them with endless news items or problems. Keep them gainfully occupied and amused, exercised and rested. Protect our children. A message from the Child Care and Protection Agency, Ministry of Human Services and Social Security, and UNICEF.
This is GHK Lal, inviting you to join me weekdays from Monday to Friday on the National Outlook for commentary on a range of issues, immediately after the 12 noon and 7 p.m. newscasts on Kaieteur Radio at 99.1 FM and 99.5 FM. Looking forward to you sharing in the conversation.
Welcome back. Two persons were on Thursday charged with assaulting Marlon Daniels, the 20-year-old Fort Wellington Secondary School teacher, on Monday. The duo, Deshaun Daniels and Trey McPherson, were both granted bail in the sum of $15,000 each when they appeared virtually before Magistrate Peter Hugh at the Fort Wellington Magistrates Courts. Daniels and McPherson pleaded not guilty to the charge of assault causing actual bodily harm. They will return to court on March 30th for a report. Marlon Daniels, the teacher, was badly beaten on Monday while at a stationary outlet opposite the Fort Wellington Secondary School. He received injuries to his face, arms, back, and other body parts. Home Affairs Minister Robeson Ben has acknowledged that some inmates are making use of illegal cell phones in prison to plot and execute crimes, and urged the Guyana Prison Service to address such issues at its annual officers' conference, which opened on Thursday. Inmates plotting crimes could have serious repercussions, and Guyana witnessed the bloodbath it caused after 5 prisoners escaped on February 23, 2002 from the Cam Street prison. Apart from highlighting that inmates are plotting crimes in prisons, Ben told prison officers that they are human beings and also have rights. The minister said that hitting an inmate must only be a last resort to prevent a situation from getting out of order and bring things under control. And the staff at the New Amsterdam Hospital on Wednesday allegedly refused to send an ambulance for an injured pensioner who was located some 15 minutes away from the medical facility. The pensioner's neighbor, Carol Carter, was the one who called the hospital requesting an ambulance for the injured man, identified as 69-year-old Harry Bridgelaw. Carter claimed that the staff told her that the case was not an emergency and advised that he be transported to the hospital in a taxi. According to Carter, Bridgelal lives alone with his daughter who suffers from a mental health condition. The hospital CEO, Dr. Bob Ramnath, was unaware of what had transpired, but when he learned of the woman's allegation, he acknowledged that the action of the staff was wrong and condemned it. Dr. Ramnath has since reached out to Carter and apologized to her on behalf of the hospital. And with Guyana's recent suspension from the Extractive Industries Transparency Institute, the country's ability to attract law-abiding foreign investors has also declined. This is according to Elson Lowe for the Office of the Leader of the Opposition. Lowe, who told a news conference on Thursday that the lack of transparency will obviously drive investors away, opined many legitimate foreign investors will be pushed out in order to favor the PPP's chosen ones. According to Lowe, many foreign businesses and government delegation visit Guyana with an interest in investing here. And on that note, we close things off by turning the pages of today's Kaieteur News, dedicated to being blunt. John Hess and PPP assurances. Guyanese get more out of John Hess than they ever got out of Bharat Jagdeo or President Ali. Hess says the PPP government has given guarantees or assurance that the contract is safe. What kind of government, what type of leader ties bundle with foreigners, give up their own people? No wonder President Ali is cursing Guyanese, calling for renegotiation. No surprise that the vice president is shutting down questions on the oil contract. Now, John Hess opens his mouth and puts them on a spot. Now, everyone sees Ali and Jagdeo for who they really are.
Want value for your advertising dollar? Then place your ads on Kaieteur Radio's newscasts. Streamed live on 6 different mediums, reaching hundreds of thousands. Advertise today and watch your dollar grow. Call us on 225-8465 or 226-8210 today.
It's Friday, March 17th. Welcome to Kaieteur Radio 99.1 and 99.5 FM. I'm GHK Lal on the National Outlook. As we seek to close this week out, it's been all about oil, and we continue that trend, and we're going to look to change that come next week, God willing. Government, Exxon in talks to delay 20% relinquishment to 2024. What is going on here, folks? I'm having a little bit of a problem, a disconnect as we would call it. Why is the government of Guyana, the PPP government, its leaders, the president or the vice president, entertaining any kind of talks to delay the relinquishment of the 20% that is due to be given up by Exxon? Why are we even having that conversation? Exxon has made it very clear that it does not want to talk. It slammed the door in our faces
when the issue of renegotiation comes up. So why are we willing to go, our leaders, running to go to the table of conversation so that Exxon can continue to explore and produce and make money from the part that it has to relinquish, the 20% that is due for relinquishing soon? We should not be having that conversation. We should be saying to Exxon, if you want to talk about that, we want to talk about this. So let's put both of these interests, both of these priorities on the table, and let's let both of us walk away with something that we can all be pleased about. Or at least we can be a bit more pleased than when we went around the table. I keep saying, and others keep saying, more often than me and louder than I do, more, and certainly angrier than I can bring up, and they've been saying, use the assets we have in our hands, use the developments that are before us as leverage to extract concessions out of ExxonMobil. And I have been saying that, and I will continue to say that to you to do so. Sports figures make lots of money, millions of dollars, and they still want more. The market value, they say. Injuries, other things. Workers do that. You do that all the time. You want a raise. You want another raise. You want better benefits. What has happened to Guyana? Why is it that we don't want our leaders, the president and the vice president, jumps in the face of Guyanese when they say, get more out of Exxon? Exxon wants more from us. It wants a concession for us. But what are we getting in return? My fellow Guyanese, what are we getting in return for giving up something to Exxon that it should not be getting? It wants to hold off, us to hold off on the part of the Stabroek Bloc, the rich Stabroek Bloc, that it has to give up, relinquish, a big word for giving up. We should be using that as a bargaining, as a card, as a bargaining chip, as a negotiating card. What has happened? I don't think that the vice president is foolish. No, he's not. I don't think that the president is so slack. No, he's not. I think they know very well what they have to do, but something Exxon did to them, or they did to themselves in their relationship with Exxon, that their feet are cemented, welded to the floor. In other words, they can't move. Their lips are sealed. They can't speak. Their ears are blocked. They can't hear other than what they want to hear, what their the people who bow down before them tell them. I am not going to tell them what they want to hear. I'm going to tell them the truth. If Exxon wants to hold on to that piece of the Stabroek Bloc, then it's got to pay. It's got to give us more. It's got to give us something more. And it can start with royalties, and the same thing we must do with those projects that are pending approvals. One might be approved this month. The 5th project, I think, Uaru. Yes. Here's the story. Unless we do so, we're going to keep having these conversations. We're going to get angrier and angrier, and something is going to get out of hand. I wouldn't like to see that happen. I wouldn't like to be here when that happens. I'm GHK Lal on Kaieteur Radio 99.1 and 99.5 FM. It's been my pleasure to share with you today and this week on the National Outlook. Do have a healthy, safe, and wonderful weekend ahead.
Kaieteur Radio.
Covering Guyana